Hello and welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking you through an approach to understanding higher order thinking skills and really giving you a bit of an idea as to why understanding these is key to getting higher grades when you're studying at university. So let's start with what's the problem. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that there's a particular thing that you want to learn. And here's my guess that when you get the feedback on your assignments, my guess is that you're getting comments a bit like this. You're being told that your writing is too descriptive, that you need to analyze more, or that you must be more critical. And this is what you're being told is the problem, and that's really what this video is here to help you solve that problem. So, what's the solution? How do we solve this problem? And in a phrase, the solution to this problem is higher order thinking skills. And it's helpful perhaps just at the beginning of this video to give you an overall graphic of what I mean by higher order thinking skills. So they can be represented like this. So we've got three kind of basic levels, starting with remembering, understanding, and then applying. And they're the underlying thinking skills. And then we've got analyzing, evaluating, and creating as the higher order thinking skills. But what does that mean? And perhaps the best way to show what it means is to use an example. So let's start with a simple question. Is a tomato a vegetable? Yes or no? And probably you're going to have a response to that. And the answer, if you're interested, is no, it's not, that it's a fruit. And knowing that a tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable, is an example of knowledge. It's something that you know. And the trouble with knowledge is knowledge requires remembering. So when we have isolated knowledge, we have to remember it, which is why remembering is that bottom level. It's actually the least important part in some ways, but you do need to have some knowledge in order to go any higher. So it's a bit strange in the fact that it's the most basic, but it's also the least important when it comes to getting grades and things like that. Remembering stuff doesn't do you any good at all. So we need to ask the question here. So knowing that a tomato is a fruit, not a vegetable, is knowledge, but then thinking about, well, why is it a fruit? So that brings us to that next question. So we start with that question about why is a tomato a fruit? And there's a couple of reasons why a tomato is a fruit. Firstly is that it comes from the flower. So its tomatoes are formed from the flowers of the tomato plant. And secondly, that the tomato contains seeds. So something which is formed from the flower in a flowering plant and contains seeds is a fruit. And that's really where we move from simply knowing the fact that a tomato is a fruit to actually understanding why. And this is where we get into that idea of comprehension, and comprehension being to understand. And the interesting thing about understanding is understanding actually uses less memory than knowledge. When we understand things, we have to work a lot less hard at retaining that knowledge. And that's kind of one of the things that higher order thinking skills do, is that they actually, as we can learn those things at a higher level, the cognitive loading drops. So it becomes easier to remember things the more we understand them. So what about cucumbers? Are cucumbers fruit or vegetable? What do you think? Yes or no? Now, you may kind of go, oh, I don't know, we've not done cucumbers. But actually, if you ask yourself a couple of simple questions, you can get the answer. So do cucumbers come from the flowers of the cucumber plant? Do cucumbers contain seeds? If the answer to those two questions is yes, then basically you know that what you're dealing with is a fruit. So a cucumber is indeed a fruit. And this is application. An application is where you take what you've learned and you apply it to things you have not yet learned. So it's that extending it. So you can take knowledge, you can take what you know, and even when you're in a new or novel situation, you're still able to apply that knowledge in a new way. And that's that next level of thinking where we're into application. And I would say that's really where you start to move into the higher order thinking skills. But going back to the tomato for a moment, so if we stick with learning about tomatoes and thinking about higher order thinking skills in relation to tomatoes, we can ask another question, which is, well, what is a fruit and how do the parts of the fruits fit together? So we can begin to kind of break it down and we can look at the different parts of the fruit and we can see how they might link to the flowers. And what we're doing here is we're looking at what is not obvious on the surface. And this is really where we're into analysis. So when we're talking about analysis, analysis is about breaking things down and then showing how the bits fit together. And analysis really is where we start to get offered into deeper meanings here. So we start to have a different relationship to knowledge when we begin to move, even from application to analysis, our knowledge has grown to a deeper level. Do tomatoes go in fruit salads? If they're a fruit, surely you can put them in a fruit salad. Yes or no? Well, why? Why not? And this is where we start to evaluate knowledge, because what we can see here is that there are botanical fruits, but there are culinary vegetables. So we're beginning to evaluate knowledge. We're beginning to ask ourselves, well, how accurate is this knowledge? How useful is it? You know, if you're a botanist, then a botanical understanding of what a fruit is quite helpful when it comes to classifying things. But if you're a chef, you need a different kind of knowledge. And so this is really when we're into evaluation. We're saying, well, how good, how reliable, how useful is this information? How well does it solve the problem that I need this knowledge to solve? Because remember, we're not into knowledge for knowledge's sake. We're into knowledge to solve real world problems. So we're talking about how good is the knowledge here. And then finally, we can ask the question, well, why not put tomatoes in a fruit salad? What if we could create a sweeter tomato? What if we grew tomatoes with thinner skins? What if we changed the taste or the texture of the tomato? We could create a whole new tomato, and there'd be no reason why that couldn't go into a fruit salad and be perfectly acceptable. If you think about, I mentioned in the previous slide about chefs, and this is one of the things that chefs will do, is chefs will find ways to take existing knowledge and create new things from it. And this is more generally, we can apply this to how we innovate new knowledge from the old, how we can draw from it and we create something that no one has thought of before. And this really is where we move into the higher order thinking skills. This is perhaps the very top of it. And we work towards that. Now, actually, I think anybody can be creative, anybody can be innovative with their knowledge. And that's really what you're aiming to do, is to kind of think thoughts you have never thought before, and potentially even think thoughts that no one else has thought before. So let's have a recap on higher order thinking skills. I mean, the first thing we say, and I perhaps should have said this right at the beginning of the video, is that higher order thinking skills are skills, and as such, they are perfectly learnable. This is not some weird, strange type of knowledge that is only accessible to the few. This is skills that any learner can develop, but it takes practice and feedback. This kind of thinking, this higher order thinking, they don't come naturally to us as human beings. We have to practice, we have to get feedback. And we have to acknowledge that developing higher order thinking skills in the short term is painful, but in the long term gives us great gains. And if you think about the University of Northampton, and if you think about what our main mission statement is, it's about transforming lives and inspiring change. And really, higher order thinking skills are central to that mission. And they're also key to success in both university and in life. So thank you for watching. I hope that's been useful. And any questions, you can contact me at the University of Northampton.